Welcome to the Crystal Zone podcast with Kyle Russell of crystalconcentrics.com. Our motto is Crystals for Life. You're in tune to the Crystal Zone podcast, and we're just taking a moment now to share a word from our partners, people who make this show possible and who might be able to help you in some way.
Hi, I'm Nina Manelson, and this is a message for you if you're a woman over 40 who has been on and off diets for at least 10 years. I'm a nutrition and body relationship therapist, and I help women feel truly at home in their body. I work with smart women who already have so much information about what they should or shouldn't do to care for themselves, but still feel like they're at war with their body and food. If this resonates with you, please visit ninamanelson.com. I have a free ebook for you, How to Be a Woman at Ease in Her Body.
It's your host here, Kyle Russell, and I am having a good time because I've realized two things this evening. One is that my podcast 3 was salvaged from an awful reverb that had launched itself into the track. And as I had hoped, my tech whiz Kobe was able to remove that, and we have a clean track. And so I am spared the embarrassment of having to put out a podcast that is marred by all that reverb. And now the other thing that is exciting is that I didn't need to re-record it, which is quite a relief. And third of all, actually, I am learning that the microphone on my computer is actually doing a perfectly fine job of capturing my vocals in a clear and resonant fashion. So I don't need to put a bunch of effects on it. So I can get right down to business and talk about what I really want to talk about, which is crystal healing, the bigger concept of crystal healing and a very specific application for it. I have been reviewing and responding to comments left on my YouTube videos, and those comments had numbered up into the 400s, and I've whittled them down into the 200s, and every, say, 80th comment is somebody who is trashing what I or we are doing by working with crystals, either from the scientific perspective or from the religious perspective. And I have defended our honor by responding to these folks, and I publicize, that is to say, I publish their comments and my responses so that folks who are interested in grappling with those questions of how do you contest a skeptic's view of what you're doing with the crystals. And so I'm hoping to help others to do that. Ultimately, what people don't realize is that my perspective is neither antithetical to religion, nor is it antithetical to science. And so, since my perspective is not challenging either one of those philosophies, really, because they are philosophies. The philosophy of science, the philosophy of religion are distinct types of philosophies that I think should not feel threatened. And yet, people feel desperately threatened, and that's why they tend to trash whatever it is that we're doing. Now, I'm not going to get into what their arguments or my defenses are, but I do want to say that for me, the scientific or medical approach has its place and is very useful. And yet there's this other thing going on for those who are sensitive to it, and that is the underlying spiritual or metaphysical aspect of your experience. And that underlying aspect is something that I believe can be addressed and worked with and touched upon by working with crystals. And so I created a video recently called 10 Crystals for Surgery. And it was in anticipation of a loved one's scheduled admission to a hospital. And I came up with a list, which I will share with you, of those 10 stones. One of them is ruby, and that is the stone's stone, having to do with grounding. It's very important when you're going into an experience like that to feel a deeper connection to something bigger than yourself. Certainly, the earth and being grounded is that. And then I chose number 2 as topaz, which I call the body whisperer, and is there to enable you to communicate into your physical experience. I think it's so important. A lot of people talk about how, oh, this stuff is irrelevant when it comes to a medical emergency. But in my experience, because I actually had a tooth pulled yesterday, your spiritual and physical awareness come in extra handy after a medical intervention and are not irrelevant in any way, but actually become more relevant because there's been this sort of intervention in through your aura to kind of mess with your being as a way of trying to actually clean it up ultimately. So, speaking of cleaning, I had number 3 as water quartz. It's a rough, tumbled quartz chunk that is designed by touching it to give you a sense of washing yourself clean. And that's good in preparation for what's going to happen, but it's also good as a way of letting go of the unwanted tissue or illness or disturbance that's been going on in your system. As a result of surgery, we often have a disturbance in our biological functions, our digestion, bowel movements, etc. So I picked as number 4 carnelian. So carnelian is the sort of ultimate representative of the internal body's functioning, and I recommended that as well as rhodochrosite, number 5, because of its capacity for cellular repair and regeneration. Rhodochrosite is a fantastic stone if you're trying to mimic or get into the spirit of the best functioning biology that you can have. And of course, the highest level of that is when a woman is pregnant and she is creating not only her own life moment to moment, but an additional life or more in that same moment. Now, lavender chalcedony came in at number 6, and it has to do with realignment and healing. Definitely a handy thing to rely on. But when you're going under the knife, it's important to feel a sense of trust and faith because you have no idea which way it's going to go. And the girasol or foggy quartz is all about you making peace with the unknown and the unknowable. And that's a really key aspect of your experience going into surgery. Another one is celestite, and that was number 8. Celestite has to do with gratitude, being grateful for what has gone right, what has brought you to this point, and also in anticipation of heavenly mercies so that you can rely on those good graces of the higher spirits to convey you through to the other side of your experience without any mishap. Number 9, I had Morion smoky quartz, which I call the guardian stone. It's like a warden looking over you, taking care of you, and making sure that nothing bad happens. It sort of has your back, that Morion smoky. And last but not least, I had an angled transmitter quartz. That's a quartz that stands naturally at an angle, the concept being that you can use it like a satellite dish to send and receive communication to your caregivers, your surgeon, your nurse, your family, friends, whoever is involved in your situation who could possibly help you. You want to be able to communicate, give them strength, give them clarity and fortitude so that they can do what they can do for you. Now, as my own surgical experience approached, and also after that surgery that was experienced close to me, I developed a new understanding and experience of what types of crystals would be useful and effective for a person post surgery. That is to say, after you've had your surgery. This is the type of thing that will come in handy, and it will be a different whole set of energies that you want to bring in. And that enabled me to amass 8 different crystals that I feel are perfect for post surgery. The first one I actually used when I went into the dentist's office and sat on that chair and opened up my mouth to have a tooth pulled. And what I was wearing around my neck was some butterscotch amber, which has become a real favorite of mine because I think that it's naturally healing. The other ambers tend to be anti inflammatories, and this certainly has that going on as well. But it also seems to infuse a kind of healing, balancing energy that's much more kind of personal and delicate than a stone like the lavender chalcedony is able to offer. So I really appreciated having that amber on me. Now, additional to that, I thought immediately of calcite because calcite is softer than quartz and it's gentler. And so when you're feeling vulnerable and at risk, the sort of hard quartzes don't really resonate. They don't make sense. They don't feel natural and feel good the way a soft calcite would. And that could be a rough crystal or one of the acid washed ones that become quite soft, or even a tumbled calcite might be useful. But I think a natural calcite is probably the easiest way to feel this type of sensation that I am talking about. Number 2 was prehnite. Prehnite being green prehnite, because the blue prehnite is more akin to topaz, which we did mention in the first set of 10. And green prehnite is more of what I call the stone aloe vera. It's very soothing from the outside to try to assuage the shock or pain that may have resulted from the incision and whatever the doctors did mucking about inside of your person. But on the score of sort of reestablishing normalcy or alignment, I look to pink chalcedony, whether that is just a naturally pure chalcedony that formed, or whether it is the rare pink petrified wood chalcedony. Either one is really kind of ideal to get into the body and to try to establish that sense of equilibrium again after the upset that had happened. Chrysocolla was number 4, and chrysocolla is sort of the stone of self compassion. Turquoise turns it up a level, but the chrysocolla has a sort of dual nature of looking inward and also looking outward into your community. And that's kind of a helpful thing for you to have humility and to show your gratitude in terms of thanks to your caretakers and everyone on your team who's been involved in looking after you up until now. And on that note, again, sort of as we look to the outside, I wanted to bring in a milky quartz or a candle quartz that is milky because that hails from the heart energy zone and has to do with compassion, the way in which you either experience or allow or invite compassion to grow and manifest in your life, either through other people's caretaking or whether through any kind of divine interference or oversight, watching over you, angels watching over you, etc. Those are all compassionate aspects that are touched upon by the milky or candle quartz. Now, as you start to contemplate the notion of healing, I find that in addition to relying or reaching back to some of those pre surgery stones, it's nice to also connect in a softer way with the higher love of healing or higher love healing, which could be manifest either by a nice cobalto calcite or a pink fluorite. I am reminded of mangano calcite, which is also very nice. And in each of those cases, I find that the crystallized version is most ideal. The crystallized versions of cobalto calcite, mangano calcite, and pink fluorite are natural healers, but from a love perspective, if that makes any sense. Those stones, instead of being located in the heart energy zone, are ways in which heart healing manifests in the healing energy zone. So that's a kind of a subtle distinction that I hope you will find useful. And then as you're looking to bounce back from being laid low, it's really important to consider something like red petrified wood. I love the red petrified wood because it is vital. It's not fiery the way that dragon quartz is, but it is fiery in the sense that it is energy generating, reaches right down into the core of your hara or chi or karma almost, if you want to use the word that way. And it sort of tickles it and wakes it up and arouses it to engage and to embrace life again and to not feel that you are against the ropes, but that you can maybe get back onto your feet and recover fully, even get back some of the energy that you had before you went under the knife. So, those are the post surgery stones, the stones that take a more gentle approach once you've had your medical intervention. And that doesn't make the pre surgery stones irrelevant. Those you can come right back to. There's 10 of them. Altogether, this makes 18 stones, which is an awful lot of stones to be able to work with at this critical time of compromised health, which is in the process of trying to ameliorate itself by getting treatment and by bringing in these various energetic aspects to help with the surgical process. And that's how I make a full circle to come back to the beginning when I was talking about hecklers or trolls who like to express themselves sort of behind the anonymity of a YouTube comment and try to yuck your yum and poo poo whatever it is that we may be doing in terms of trying to appreciate and work with stones. Obviously, people who get it are not going to be swayed, and I wonder how many other people who are on the fence, especially when it comes to the whole religious argument, will say, oh, wow, if this is really, against my religion, and is the work of the devil, then I should totally stay away from it. Um, I think one of the things I mentioned, or maybe I restrained myself, was that if you look at the primary religions and you look at the central stories and myths that comprise that religious narrative, you will find all kinds of completely fantastic, unbelievable, and most likely untrue circumstances that miraculously happened. Prophetic visions, journeys, God speaking through a burning bush. These are some pretty abstract concepts, and I would just argue that because of the utility of these metaphysical tools in assisting us as we grapple with the spiritual aspect and the energetic aspect of a surgery or medical intervention, I think it's only fair to put all of these abstract beliefs on a more even footing and not to judge or minimize one over the other, but to instead recognize that these belief systems each have their place and have their function in terms of being able to help us humans in our navigation of the complex circumstances that life throws at us. So I really embrace all modalities and anything that can really assist you in comprehending where you're at and where you're going and how to cope with challenges, difficulties, pain, or other issues that you might be having, physical or mental. So, on that note, I think I'm going to bring this podcast to a close. I am very excited to be putting these out monthly. Maybe we'll increase it to more than monthly, but this feels like a pretty good pace. And if everyone can make sure to give a listen to one of these each month, I think it will give you some great perspective on the world of crystals, how we use them, and what sort of hopes and expectations we can have about working them into our experience in a positive and synergistically positive way. So thanks again for listening. It's been Kyle Russell here on the Crystal Zone podcast. All right, have a good one.
You're in tune to the Crystal Zone podcast, talking all about crystals for life. And you might wonder, where would be a great place to buy crystals? Well, we have a warehouse and storefront, the Portal Crystal Gallery in Arlington Center, Massachusetts. And you can have a look at all our displayed items. And also, if there's something of interest, we have an extensive backstock. In any case, if you're more distant and you want to work by email and phone, we are happy to serve you through our quality custom crystal mail order service. A portion of our inventory is up at crystalconcentrics.com, but you should definitely email Kyle, K-Y-L-E, at crystalconcentrics.com with any questions. We can send you videos and show you all kinds of items which we have not yet had time to upload onto the site. Looking forward to hearing from you.